Getting a PT shouldn't be based on what someone else looks like. It's about your knowledge, getting a deeper understanding of what exercise does for you. The majority of people without PTs don't make progress. People want to get in shape. That's why people go and exercise. Doing loads of super high intensity work is going to get you in shape quicker, but you're going to be in a much worse off position. Doing it with strength training, it's going to be a bit slower, but you're going to be a lot better off. When you're strength training, you build a younger hormone profile. Doing HIIT cardio, you're building an older one. ADHD relating to exercise, routine is really healthy. Dopamine is good. ADHD is basically a lack of dopamine. The biggest thing is energy release. I go and expend some of that, what feels like excess energy, and then I can focus. I really hope that the massive increase in diagnosis is going to result in more subsidizing for finding ways for people that have their one thing they can focus on to actually make money off it. Sleep, food, water, exercise, stress, relationships. Get those pillars in order. Your health will massively improve. Find the barriers, break them down, and as soon as you get the bug, you'll replace anything to find gym time.
Okay, so Moody Girl listeners, today I actually have one of my closest and dear male friends, Evan Jones, on this show today. And actually, we were just having an open discussion, as friends do, about the people that I'd got on the podcasts. And quite crucially, Evan mentioned the fact that without us looking after our physical health, you know, we can have all of these alternative therapies, but we need to have the basics in place. So that was a really amazing conversation that we had that day, one Sunday, in the small town that we both grew up near. So that's why I wanted to get you on the show to talk about that more. So welcome, Evan. How are you today?
Hey, I'm good. Bit hot, but good.
So you may see in both of our backgrounds, both of us are not in England at the moment. We are in Europe, living our best lives. So if we start sweating or drinking water profusely, then that's why. So let's start with. So for the audience who haven't met you before, tell us a little bit more about your story. How did you get into the work that you're doing now? I know you've had quite a colourful background, and we'd love to kind of hear that.
Cool. Yeah. How early do you want to go? I was a very reckless, maniacal little kid, diagnosed with ADHD at 4. Super high energy output all the time. Found school very difficult. Basically, unless I found something I could really focus on, I was terrible at it because I didn't invest in it and I couldn't. Fast forward to like 15 and started playing drums, or a bit earlier than that. And that not only was an energy outlet, it was something I was fascinated by. I beat the crap out of a drum kit for 6-7 hours a day for a lot of years. And then was in bands and stuff, and that was very much an output. But all the way through that, I played sports at school. That was always, it never grabbed me fascination, but I liked being active. I always found when I drained some energy that I was a better person, in all walks. And then at 20, I decided I wanted to learn to be a PT, and I didn't really know why I wanted to learn to be a PT, but I think because I wanted to further my knowledge for my own exercise. Totally selfish, and but then in doing it, I became completely obsessed with it. You go down the rabbit hole of how different people behave and how different bodies behave and how people need different coaching methods, and I became really obsessed with it. And then basically since 20, so 13 years almost, I've done a course or something every year. I'm constantly reading about it, and the obsession hasn't gone away. And actually, the more people you train, the more infatuated you become by the differences in people. So that's kind of how I got into PTing, and it's kind of now hobby as well as work, which is a really nice place to be. I mean, I'd be lying if there weren't areas of the work that I didn't love as much as the others. But in all, it's Sorry, the wind's picking up. In all, it's it's I'm doing a job that I really enjoy, and as someone with still with pretty severe ADHD, not medicated anymore, but that's super important, and I feel very lucky to have that because I've got childhood friends that have never found that and find
Mm,
that's a constant battle. And the reality is most people don't ever find that, and
yeah,
especially ADHD kids.
yeah, totally. I think that's something that I've struggled with myself, and you can see kind of recurring patterns throughout each of our lives if we look at it and you think, huh, that's probably because we didn't find the thing that kind of makes us tick. And I think it's really
Yeah, yeah,
amazing
yeah.
that at 20, you had that focus, which for somebody with severe ADHD was an amazing lifeline for you. And I think that's really cool that you found it.
Totally, totally.
What I really love about your work is because, we're all consumers. We consume TikTok, we consume Instagram, we consume all of these YouTube videos on PTs, etc., etc.
Yeah,
But I'd never had a PT until I started working with you, and it was very unique in your approach because it was so personal. We had a really long conversation over the phone. It wasn't based on image, it was based on, actually feeling and being the most healthiest versions of ourselves. And I thought that was a really, you kind of, without realizing it, I think that I had been, I guess, I can't think of the word, but in a way, like I've been conditioned to talking about the physical side of my appearance.
totally. Yeah, yeah,
um
yeah.
and it was nice when you kind of pulled me up on that. You're like, okay, great, if you want a bigger bum, fine, but like, actually, how do you feel every day? Like, are
Yeah,
there any twinges? What can we do? And so I think your approach is really unique, and you're super knowledgeable, and that's probably because you're doing so much studying and continuing to study every year, which I think is really cool. Um so I mean, what do you think are the benefits for anyone out there who hasn't worked with a PT before? They haven't really seen themselves as an especially sporty person, but they do want to start looking after themselves a little bit better. What do you think are the main benefits of working with a PT?
um main benefits of working PT, I mean, I think it's there's I mean, you bringing up TikTok and Instagram and things like that, you're pushed with predominantly, not everyone, people's ideals, and typically people's ideals are what worked for them,
Mm,
and what worked for them isn't what's going to work for everyone else. And you get lots of people that are phenomenal at using social media and they push their message, and because they're phenomenal at using social media, you look at how many followers, you trust them. And I think getting a PT shouldn't be based on what someone else looks like. Look at old like boxing coaches in old movies, and they're tiny
mm-hmm,
little fat things that are like it's about your knowledge. It's not about yes, there's an element of practice what you preach, of course, but I think we modern media has made us trust the wrong things.
mm,
Um, so I think getting a PT, just learning, getting a deeper understanding of what exercise does for you, what it does globally to the avatar that is a human, but also what it can do for you. What are areas of your life, your sleep, your stress levels, are your relationships, is your daily movement not enough, is your nutrition not on point? If you have all those conversations, you can build kind of a better global health um, within yourself. And then a PT is going to, you can buy a program online, or you can download a free program online, which is made for insert human, right? But
mm,
how many of those exist? Yeah, some. Most, a handful of people are going to get good results following a blanket program. But most people could take that blanket program, have a conversation with a PT, not even work with them forever, but have a conversation with a PT, look at some movement, do a session, and learn how to do that program for them. And
mm-hmm,
I think finding out where issues might be in your body, finding out where barriers might be in terms of getting to the gym. Have you got a 1-year-old kid, and actually in reality you need to train 10-15 minutes every day rather than these like Monday, Wednesday, Friday approaches that so many people have. There are so many hurdles for so many people. The reason I've never had a PT is because I didn't have those barriers for whatever reason. I jumped in, I obsessed over it, I learned everything I needed to learn. Because the reality is, anything I know, anything any PT knows, is Googleable. but
Mm.
you don't know how to Google it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like any profession, like how many times you've been in a doctor's surgery and they're on Google, like, like I think it's people, that follow. I see people in the gym that have saved videos on their Instagram and they're just doing this movement, this movement, this movement, which is, I don't know, it's like watching dentistry on YouTube and then trying to do your own teeth. Like
So
it's
true.
still your body, right? And because of the
Yeah.
way media has turned kind of physical exercise, and the reality is, it's not as far as that. The reality is you can
Mm-hmm.
move and better your health. But the majority of people without PTs don't make progress.
Mm.
Um, so many people, so many people spend years in the gym and don't make any progress. They've done the hard bit. They've got the motivation to go to the gym, and they're doing that. And yeah, they're moving, which is great for lots and lots and lots of things. But they're not making any progress because they go and do the exact same thing every time, or they're not. There's not enough intensity. Blah 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 blah. We can get into that if you like, but yeah, I think just even if you just had one chat, sit down, maybe a bit of movement with a PT, 1 hour, you could probably go and do 50% better in the gym in your own time. It's just
Mm-hmm.
gaining some understanding about your body and how you move and what your barriers are and the best way to train for you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think another thing that I learned from working with you and what I really liked about that is, yes, it's an investment to start with, but like anything, therapy, it's an investment. Working with alternative health therapies or therapists, that's an investment too. But the ultimate
Totally.
goal is that you are going to feel better enough to be able to take those skills with you moving forward. So, for instance, you taught me the basic fundamental skills and routines that I can do in the gym, that I can now take with me moving forward. Will you probably pick me up on some of those and my movements now? Absolutely. But at least I've got like a general understanding of it. Whereas before I didn't have those skills and that core kind
Totally.
of understanding and confidence to go into the gym. I mean, before I worked with you, I would have never dreamed of going up to a squat rack. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
just like
yeah.
that is not for me. Like I'm not going to get bulky and I do
Yeah, I mean that
yoga.
media, I can't believe that there are still people, yourself included, and I think from where I'm standing, you don't get it, but that's because I'm standing where I'm standing. But
Yeah.
there are still so many people, women, that think that women and men should train differently, which is madness. Like
Mm,
squat racks are for men, bench presses for men, blah blah blah, and it's just like, or like low rep, doing 3 really heavy reps is something that blokes do, and it's like, no, there is absolutely no difference in the way we should train, barring,
hmm.
which I think we'll talk about, barring when you're at certain points in your cycle. Um, but the movements and the rate of progression and the periodization and the sets, reps, rests, etc. But people, women typically want a bum and men typically want biceps or whatever it might be, and then it changes. But in terms of health, sack off all of those, those momentary changes. It was all about the skinny as possible when we were in our teens.
Mm, hmm.
Now it's like bums, shoulders, and it's always going to change. Just build a body that's healthy.
Yeah.
But if you have those goals, then yeah, you need to make little changes. But that doesn't differ from man to woman in any way. Women don't
Hmm.
need stronger bums than men. Like, and I think there's a lot of, yeah, and that creates along again with social media, um, creates a lot of barriers for people. They think getting into the gym is mad, and they'll go and do a yoga class or they'll go and do a HIIT class, which
Mm,
we'll get into, um, but aren't as just they're great things, but they're not as beneficial as strength training and shouldn't make up the majority of your time exercising, moving.
hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think just get developing that understanding for you and having that confidence to get in a squat rack is going to set you up for, depending on who you are, 3 months, maybe a year, and then
Hmm.
go and have another conversation. How do I turn things on? And that's not the ideal. We're talking, there's financial points of entry, right? If you've got no money, go and spend an hour googling and you can probably build yourself a half decent program. And if you've got 0 to 50 quid, there are thousands of PTs that are building, personalized programs that aren't really, they fit your avatar best. You say, I
Hmm.
want this, and they go, oh, they can have this one. Um, and then, from 50 to 100, you can get an actually personalized, you know, per month I'm talking, an actually personalized program.
Mm.
And you know, it's depending on your financial position, but it gets easier, less work for you. But if you've got no money, you can still just investigate and ask people questions.
Yeah.
Like, talk to people. If you've got a friend or a friend of a friend that's a PT, I'm sure they'll have a 10-minute chat with you and you'll learn quite a lot.
Yeah, totally. So on the kind of subject of classes in gyms, especially I know cardio and classes, I know we've spoken about a lot. I used to spend a lot of time doing like HIIT classes first thing in the morning before going to work, and you and we kind of had this discussion about it, and you opened my
Yeah.
eyes completely to it. So for any of the audience who are completely thrashing themselves by doing HIIT and thinking this is, you know, gonna, I don't know, get them to their optimum health, what do you have to say about that?
So much. So much. Let's start with like the overall reasoning, right? People want to get in shape predominantly. That's why people go and exercise, because they want to get in shape. Um, Doing loads of super high intensity work is going to get you in shape quicker, but you're going to be in a much worse off position. Doing it with strength training, it's going to be a bit slower, but you're going to be a lot better off. How, I mean, you go to HIIT classes. Let's be more direct. You go to HIIT classes, spin classes, whatever it might be. You're sending a signal to move light loads for high reps, right? You're
Mhm.
doing loads of burpees. You're doing mountain
Yep.
climbers. You're doing, you know, a minute of a solid exercise as fast as you can. All the only adaptation signal that's sending your body is to get more efficient at those things, and those things do not require strength. They require endurance. And to make a mountain climb or a burpee easier, the best way to make that movement easier for your body is to get lighter. Like a pound of muscle this big, a pound of fat this big. Your
Mhm.
body's going to go, okay, let's strip down muscle. Costs too much. You have to feed muscle. The calories, it's not worth it. Let's pare down that muscle and get lighter. How many times have you been in a spin class and you've seen this geezer that's been going for 10 years and is still overweight, and they do
Mhm.
this, they yo-yo. So every day you go to a HIIT class, every day you run, you send that signal to get lighter. So in order to stay losing weight, because you've got rid of some muscle, in order to stay losing weight, you have to eat less, because your metabolism is going to slow down for every less bit of muscle you have. If you're high muscle, low fat, you have to eat more and more and more. Like, I'm
Mm.
not that big personally, and I eat 4,000 calories a day to stay the same weight. Whereas someone who's going to HIIT classes, they're down to 1,000 calories and they're in a pickle.
Wow.
So, so not only that, your cortisol spiking. Cortisol isn't necessarily the worst thing. You know, it's going to teach you how to deal with high stress situations in life, you know, ice baths, the like. But pumping your body full of it for 45 minutes and the layover for however many hours for the rest of the day, and feeling beat up, high injury risk, being in pain the next day, these are not good markers of a good workout. Um, your So it's metabolic rate. If you have more muscle, you've got higher metabolism, basically. You've also got your genetic metabolism. If you have less muscle, slower. Therefore, you need to eat more, you need to eat less. So the game with losing weight through cardio, which people do very successfully, they hammer themselves for 3 months. They're in a worse place than they started. As soon as they stop the cardio, they pile on weight, because suddenly
Mm.
that expenditure from that hour a day is gone. And the amount of people I know, you probably know, that have lost weight through cardio and swear by it because it worked, and they're overweight, and you're going, did it work?
Mm.
Right, it worked for you for a bit, but it
Yeah.
didn't. You fell back in because it's not sustainable. So with strength training, it's you're building muscle, which is expensive tissue that you have to feed. We're thrown processed foods all the time. We're in a world where we sit down too much. We're in, like, there is challenges around all of that. Wouldn't you rather build a body that can deal with that,
Mm.
in terms of not becoming overweight, because that is unhealthy and leads to many health issues?
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, and the you're, you know, when you're strength training, you're building I mean, essentially, when you're strength training, you build a younger hormone profile. When you're doing HIIT cardio, you're building an older one.
Wow.
It can't process in the same way, because you're beating yourself up every day.
I think
Like
that's
leaving
how it definitely felt as well. You end up just halfway through the day just getting absolutely knackered, I felt, and just also wanting to binge eat after that and eat
Yeah, yeah,
crap.
totally. Yeah.
So Yeah.
Yeah, because you're exhausted. You shouldn't
Mm,
leave the gym feeling destroyed. It's not conducive to productivity at work. It's not conducive to good sleep. It's not conducive to eating good food. Um, you're you're beating yourself up. It's too much, and it does work for a brief moment, and then you go back the other way. And every single time you lose weight through cardio alone and a calorie restricted diet, you're beating your metabolism up even more, and it gets
mm,
harder to get there every single time. Not only because of the breakdown in those systems, but also because you're getting older, and that's another thing that's breaking down systems all the time. Cardio is not bad, but it should make up 20% of your physical activity, I would say.
okay. And then
That's
the
why
rest.
walking's great.
And what about the rest? Would you say the rest 80% all are like mainly strength?
I mean, building like a perfect plan is difficult, but I think prioritize strength training, do an amount of cardio a week. Maybe you do a 20 to 60-minute bike ride, run, or something to get your heart rate up, to have healthy heart and lungs. Do not approach it for fat loss. Approach it for
Mm-hmm.
healthy heart and lungs,
Mm-hmm.
or use it for. And yeah, mate, I mean, depending on where you are, it's however much strength training, the minimal amount of strength training that can elicit change. If you do too much, you're going to have high inflammation rates, you're going to be tired, you're going to be blah, 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 blah. So find your lowest amount that causes change and then
Mm-hmm.
slowly build from there. And very few people ever get to a place where they need more than 3 1 hour sessions a week.
Wow.
Very, very, very few. Um, and you could break that 3 hours up. You could do half an hour 6 days a week if you want to build a better routine with going to the gym, you know.
Mm-hmm. I think that's
Um,
really
yeah,
important as well for any listeners out there who may be a little bit nervous about, going into straight into like a strength training routine. I think that's what I found refreshing as well about you, Ivan, is that you made it really accessible for me, for somebody who hadn't ever done that before. And you were like, no, you're not allowed to do 4 sessions actually.
yeah,
You
yeah,
can
yeah.
only, I want you to pick three days out of the week, and those are your days, and those are what the days you're going to bloody well stick to.
Yeah, well, I mean, the reality is, if you're less than 3, 4, even 5 years into, lifting weights, resistance training, um, if you feel like you could do another day, then you're probably not working hard enough when you're in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
So you're better to approach the intensity in the gym than cut into your recovery days, because recovery is just as important. You need that time to repair and rebuild. Um, so yeah, it happens all the time. People get the bug and go, "Can I do 5 days a week?" And it's like, cool, we'll up your intensity for 3 days. Or if you're desperate to do 5 days a week, I'm just going to take those exact same 3 hours and break them up into five. I'm not going to add any volume
No.
because you need to be able to recover from it. But yeah, people get the bug and want to do as much as possible, and that's why things like HIIT classes sell, because they're addictive. You
Mm-hmm.
go, it's part of your routine. You go to this bougie little spot and get your shake afterwards, and all of this is it's community, which is great. And if it keeps you
Yeah.
going, it's great. And also, caveat all of this: if it's doing HIIT classes or doing nothing, HIIT classes are better. You are
Mm.
moving,
Mm-hmm.
great, great. But you could spend your time a lot more wisely. But yeah, like having that routine and getting that big old cortisol spike, it's addictive. It's addictive,
Mm.
and eventually, the addictive thing with resistance training, focused, focused exercise plan, or biasing resistance training, is the thing that you become addicted to is the improvements in sleep, the improvements in your home life, your relationships, not snapping at your kid, like the improvements in all your general stress levels, waking up feeling better, making better food choices that elevate all those other things as well.
Mm.
It's the knock-on effect, and you suddenly feel like you're in a groove and you're existing happy, well slept, energized throughout the day, not destroyed all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the majority of people that love their HIIT classes are probably, if there's people listening to this that are obsessed with it, they're still hearing that and going, yeah, I feel beat up all day.
Yeah.
Like they are.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, life is hard enough as it is. Like social media, we have to compare ourselves constantly with what's going on in the world there. We've got harrowing news constantly, and then, work's hard enough as it is if you're in a job that you hate. And then before that, you go and beat yourself up at the gym. I mean, Jesus, where does it all stop?
Yeah,
So I think like
totally.
one of the biggest lessons that I've learned from you is to that you can give yourself a little bit of a break and to be kinder with yourself, and you can be kinder through strength training, which I didn't realize was a thing before I met you. And we started
Absolutely.
speaking about it, and a lot of our friends now, I mean, you've completely changed a lot of women in our friendship group who were very much into running, obsessed with running, and now who don't even run anymore and who are really amazing in the gym and have got their routine down, have completely changed their mental health,
Totally.
their physical health,
It
and
was
that's
great.
all down to
Lockdown
that.
was, sorry. Yeah, it is. I mean, lockdown was I in lockdown I started a free group bodyweight only workout thing, and invited all my friends to come onto a Zoom, and I'd talk you through a basic full body routine a couple of times a week. And within it, at the end, people would stick around, people ask questions, people would, and that was kind of the beginning for lots of people. It was a nice moment for me, who friends of mine that have looked at me as this kind of beefcake meathead. I am a meathead, but have looked at me as this kind of character, and then slowly during these little workout things, feeding them information, because the things I were doing, they were not dissimilar from HIIT classes. It was just a bit of daily movement for people that wouldn't otherwise do it.
Hmm.
Um, it wasn't HIIT, but um, and that fed on, and then people came and started doing actual programming with me, and I was writing routines for people, and friends, predominantly friends, and their whole perception of what I do completely changed, because once you're in 6 months, a year in, you suddenly realize that that's now normal for you, and the idea that that were in squat racks were weirdos is completely alien. It's like
Mm.
that's just a normal human movement that
Hmm.
we should all be engaging in. But yeah, totally. And the running addicted, um, you know, trying to battle their body fat percentage through running, which is just a losing game.
Hmm.
And not only is it a losing game, but then you go into the strength side of things and you just build more body confidence. Like building strength builds strength. And I think that it sounds a bit kind of cuckoo, but if you're trying to overcome a certain weight on this, and you're chasing it for a period of time, and you complete that, you do it by yourself, no one cares, no one watched, but it's a massive accomplishment, and that feeds into like that positivity within yourself to accomplish things on the most basic level. And then things
Hmm.
like getting injured and getting to the other side of that injury teach you that, like, practice and perseverance in something, you can get to the other side of it. And running, it's very different. Like, I'd love to love running. I don't. I hate it. But I'd love to run once a week as my cardio, um, because of how people talk about it being this relaxed state where you're just in your. I get that with strength training, of course I do, but um, it's not the way to get into peak health.
Hmm.
Yeah, unless of course you want to be a professional runner, and then you probably have to. But there's very different. It's a very different thing. Peak performance and peak health.
Hmm.
Professional athletes are in terrible, terrible health. They die young. They do
Hmm.
too much continuously for their entire career, and they die
Hmm.
young.
And
That's
you'll
that's
see all these
yeah.
runners as well in terms of, I don't know, just injuries, as you say. So like knee injuries, and once you've buggered that, then it's like, where do
And
you
then you
go from
stop.
there? Yeah.
Like, it's as simple as that. You then stop running with an injury and you pile on weight. You stop exercising because of an injury in the gym. You can still go and train. You just
Mm,
can't train with that elbow. And
yeah.
not only that, you've built this body that is designed to stay the way it is, not crumble. Um,
Mhm.
in layman's terms, yeah.
So I wanted to go on to speak about, we've spoken when we were kind of in training together about my cycle specifically and how I can train around it.
Yeah.
So for instance, today I'm day one of my new cycle. I have forced myself to just go and do a light swim today. So that felt really relaxing. We've got some really small weights here. And when I say small, they are literally tiny, but
Yeah.
just that felt good. And that felt intuitively right for me at this point in my cycle.
Yeah.
But for anyone out there who maybe has, quite extreme hormonal issues in terms of maybe endometriosis, so a lot of pain before and during the cycle. Maybe they have a normal cycle, but they just feel a little bit, I guess, lethargic and lazier when they're bleeding or pre-period.
I
What would
think
you say?
there's two kind of things to really distinguish here. So if I'm with a client, I don't care where they are in their cycle. I do
Mm-hmm.
not care. What I care about is how they feel that day.
Yeah.
They come to me, we're going to work out how do you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, understanding the science of it is good, but in my experience, you get a lot of people that learn a bit about it and obsess over that rather than listening to their body. And
Mm.
yes, it's important, and it's good to go, okay, this is why this, and excuse yourself to a degree, but don't train based on your cycle. Train based on how you feel. And
Mm-hmm.
then if you're training, if you get into the gym and you're in your menstruation phase and your estrogen and progesterone are really low and you're bloated, you're getting cramps, you're iron deficient, whatever it might be, you get in and you're wearing your big baggy hoodie because you feel gross and you're whatever it might be, just do some mobility, do some really light cardio, practice lifts, put
Mm-hmm.
a quarter of the weight on the bar and just practice form and technique. um, but the reality is, don't go, I'm in this phase,
Mm.
I'm not going to train today.
Yeah.
But don't go, I'm in this phase, I'm going to keep it light. Listen to yourself, feel your body. Now, people that have a textbook like clockwork cycle where they always feel crap, followed by feeling a bit better, follicular, even better ovulation, then start feeling really crap in that transition again. If that is clockwork, then yeah, start looking to do it in a new way, how you program. I program typically the skeleton of any program. You're doing a phase of, let's say, heavy lifting, you're doing a phase of hypertrophy, you're doing a phase of endurance, and they're 4-week phases, that's a 12-week. And then you're going to go into working on mobility, getting more squat depth, getting better at this. If your cycle's really kind of predictable and you know that you're going to have these highs and lows, then you can kind of blend all of those into a month rather than 12 weeks. So you go, okay, for the first phase, I am going to go in, I'm going to practice technique, I'm going to work on my mobility, I'm going to do a yoga class once or twice in that week. And that's great. And then I'll start feeling better. My testosterone's going to start picking up. I'm going to start having more energy because of estrogen levels. Then you go into pushing those numbers a little bit, doing hypertrophy, 3 sets of 10, playing with that, not at a crazy intensity. And then when you come into that phase where you can go for it,
Mm.
go for it every month, go for it, go, go,
Mm-hmm.
go. And you get professional, I don't know, powerlifters or strength athletes of any description. They don't have that freedom, right? They're going to the Olympics or they're going to a powerlifting meet. They don't have that freedom. So
Mm.
they quite often have to play this game, and they're going to book in, they're going to look, a powerlifter is a really good example. They're going to scan around. I'm training a female powerlifter at the moment,
Wow.
and we're scouting out a competition so that they can get an official score that falls in the right time
Wow.
so that they can peak for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a lot of people do, but a lot of people don't have that freedom, and they have to train like this. So their technique work. When you're feeling crappy, technique, mobility, yoga, low impact. And then when you're ovulating, you can do that high impact stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you love doing one HIIT class a week, that's when you get to do it. You do a little phase of HIIT. You do 3-4 days of like loads of bouncy stuff,
Mm-hmm.
hammering your joints when you
Mm.
can. But I think overall of it, like studies and advice given out can sometimes hinder your perception of yourself. Think about this, not what you're reading, I think. And I really think that's an important thing for anyone to take, for even people that have pretty clockwork. Just learn how to evaluate your strength levels. There's a couple of ways you can actually do that literally. I can't remember what they're called. It's like a dynameter, something. It's a grip test. It's how strong is your grip. So you wake up in the morning and you try and like grab hold of someone that you're like completely pathetic. You know that feeling when as soon as you wake up and you try and grab someone, it's just like that is an incredible test of how you slept, how you ate the day before, how you hydrated the day before. You do that every morning, do a grip test. You'll know whether you've got energy to lift heavy stuff today. You will know. You could also do that by hanging off a bar. How long could you hang off the bar today compared to so little things like that. If you want to do actual testing, that's maybe a bit too much for the gen pop, but that's what strength athletes will do. They'll wake up, they'll test their strength in some way, and that'll be a pretty good indicator along with how they feel. But in terms of me with clients, it's conversation. It's they turn up. How are you feeling? I don't care what phase you're in. How are you feeling? How did you sleep? How are your stress levels? Are you how's your brain fog? How's your anxiety? How are you snappy at the moment? All of those things that people talk about in terms of phases, PMS. Voice those to me, but don't think about them in terms of your cycle, because that can distract from when you actually could do good work.
I agree.
So reading your body, just reading your body, not the science. Understand and acknowledge the science, but your body's better than any studies they've done on other people, because your body's your body.
I agree. And I think it comes down to and I keep coming back to this and when I'm thinking about myself recently, but connection, just having that connection with your own body. And as you say, yes, you may be going through the latter part of your cycle, the luteal phase, and it may feel like sometimes the way I would describe it when I was doing some training with you in my luteal phase, it kind of felt as though I was like on sticky tar. Do you know what I mean? It was just like everything had a lag to it, and I was just like, gee, this is hard
and
right
now. You can totally see why.
Mm.
And being generalizing, why a lot of women get stuck in yoga or get stuck in that type of exercise that's low impact. Pilates, you can see why people get stuck in yoga, in Pilates, because it's very low impact. You don't get as much of that sticky feeling. There's low impact, so you're not going to beat up your joints, and it's not fatiguing in the same way. But that my word of advice is don't get stuck doing what feels good at the worst time of the month for the whole month. Challenge yourself to break out of that as soon as you feel better, and really ask yourself whether you're doing yoga because you love yoga, or you're doing yoga because you feel too beat up to do strength training. And the chances are there are 2.5 weeks where you could go and move well.
I think actually I'm probably in that stage at the moment where I have kind of gone on a yoga binge, and that was mainly, I was going to speak to you about inflammation, and that's something that I'm trying to kind of alleviate in my body at the moment, is inflammation. And I know we kind of broached the subject in a small amount, where I'm almost too scared to go really hard at the moment.
And you should be, because the whole point of lifting a weight is to break down muscle fiber, to cause inflammation, to then repair it stronger. Sending a signal to your body to say you need to be better at this, breaking down the fibers and then repairing them. So that is going to increase inflammation. There's a lot of talk. It's kind of there's misconceptions around inflammation in terms of exercise. People are getting very obsessed with ice baths for great reasons. I love an ice bath. It's great for recovery, but it's not good for muscle growth. So straight after a strength session, going and getting in an ice bath to reduce inflammation is going to stop those adaptations from happening, because you need that inflammation to create change. You need those fibers to break down. Now, if you were learning a skill, let's say you're someone that's trying to do handstands, trying to do, skilled movements, gymnastic things, and the strength isn't the issue, it's the skill that's the issue. ice bath afterwards is fine because you're not trying to build the muscle to do that thing. You're just practicing the skill. You're getting inflamed. That's cool. Let's break that inflammation down. You don't need the inflammation to neurologically get better at sending that signal to your body. So inflammation, if you're trying to get stronger, is vital. So I would say for you, during this time when you're trying not to have inflammation, is don't push, don't up the intensity of strength. Think of this as, being in the luteal phase for a while where you do yoga, you practice your squat, deadlift, bench press, bent over rows, and get really good at the technique without exceeding your current ability so that you're not causing more inflammation in your body. That would be my advice there. But, ice baths, bringing them up for inflammation, that's one way to use them. People use them for cortisol spikes and dealing with stress environments, and they're beneficial in many ways. But if you're trying to get strong, they're not good. Use them on your rest days, but they slow down hypertrophy. So yeah, I think in terms of cycles and what you're doing at the moment, I think again it's listen to your body. If you're fighting something and you need your inflammation to be low, then do all you can and don't go and beat your muscles up. It's not the time for you to do it. But put in some groundwork for when you can again and practice the skill of lifting, because lifting is a skill. But you're not doing it for growth, you're doing it for the future when you go back to it and push your numbers again.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And I mean, even just, would you suggest, I guess, anyone else out there listening who might have some condition which is linked to inflammation, who might be going through something similar, would you suggest, just maybe even practicing just with the bar only, no weights, keep it at that for a bit?
I think, I mean, depending on where you're at, there are people out there that can't lift the bar, and that's challenging for them. So I think, where ordinarily I would tell people to do resistance training to an 8, 9 out of 10 effort level, keep it more like a 4, 5, 6, because destroying yourself is going to increase your inflammation. HIIT classes are going to really increase your inflammation.
I'm
All
staying
that
clear
impact.
away from those. Like that's the last of where I'm going to be at right now.
Sounds like right now is a really good time for you to do low volume yoga, Pilates, technique work, that kind of stuff, and move plenty. Just don't push yourself. Again, it's all listen to your body. If you feel like you're pushing yourself, then the likelihood is you're going to be causing some inflammation.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that. So I was going to speak about, so we kind of touched on it a little bit, but with your, I guess, ADHD, you now say, it's a big topic right now. I feel as though it's kind of lots more people are getting diagnosis of it. You have very much had ADHD since a young child, so it's been very much part of your life. And having the gym for you, was there a point, do you feel basically from you finding the gym and you finding strength training, do you think that gave you the ability to come off your ADHD medication?
I came off medication a little while before that. So I was medicated from, I'm guessing here, I think that's a whole nother conversation of blanking memories through trauma. I was medicated, I think, from about 5 till about 12.
Okay.
That's a guess. Maybe 13, maybe 14. I can't remember. But in terms of ADHD relating to exercise, it's definitely made improvements. I don't think they're big kind of groundbreaking things. I think they're simply, routine is really healthy for ADHD people. Dopamine is good, and resistance training can help with that. And ADHD, essentially, something so many people don't know, ADHD is basically a lack of dopamine. That's basically what it is. Serious lack in dopamine, which is why they give you amphetamines as medication. I took Ritalin. It's basically speed. And that's why so many ADHD people get into dopamine enhancing drugs, be that nicotine, which increases dopamine, or amphetamines or coke, drugs that increased dopamine. It's really common for ADHD people to become very into those things. And I did it. I got into smoking at a really young age, and I didn't realize till later in life that that was a form of self-medicating. And until I stopped, I didn't realize, and I lost all focus. But routine is really valuable. Dopamine, minimally, I don't think it's massive amounts that's going to transform my my chemical balance, but I think that's part of it. And then the biggest thing is energy release. Like, I get up in the morning, I go and expend some of that, what feels like excess energy, and then I can focus a hell of a lot better. I try and work in the morning, and I start working immediately on 32 different tasks, not getting anywhere with any of them, and then realize I've been staring at a wall for 15 minutes. And then I go to the gym and I come back and I can slightly better just focus on 9 tasks at once instead. So I think routine and energy release are the biggest. I don't think it's anything bigger than that for me. But also, like I spoke about earlier, a sense of kind of control, like the strength thing again. So I realized I can go in and I can focus for an hour and a half in the gym. Before that, the longest I ever focused was probably playing a gig on stage for 45 minutes. Other than that, I think the longest I can ever focus on anything is about 5 minutes. So the fact that I can go into the gym and really focus for 90 minutes, or I can do this because I'm passionate about it and talk about it for as long as I, ramble and get lost within my own ramblings. I think that taught me a lot, that I can focus on things that I enjoy. And I think that's probably why I went and did the PT course, is that I realized I could go into the gym and have tunnel vision and get my work done. So I think, there are benefits. I don't know how scientific any of them are. I think there's probably lots of similar anecdotal responses to that question from other people with ADHD.
Of course, it's so personal.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know what my level of knowledge on the science of why those things be, like releasing energy, because ADHD isn't necessarily more energy. It's just being all over the place. But it feels like you drain the battery a little bit, you can do more. You can focus more.
I think it's really important as well what you said there, because I've spoken to now 3, you're the third ADHD male that I've spoken to on this podcast, actually. And it's funny because each one of you have kind of found that thing that you love. And it was my brother who has his free diving and diving, which is his thing, which he can talk about forever. Yours is your personal training. And there was another amazing guy, Ellie, based in Las Vegas, who's a therapist. And
I heard that one.
So it's interesting that each of you have found that thing that inspires you and can help you to focus. So I guess,
and I think the reality is that we are by far the minority of people especially people with early diagnosis ADHD. I think if you were diagnosed as a little kid, and you're an adult now, the chances that you found that thing, I think, are pretty slim. Because I think it's great that stories like mine, like your brother's, like Ellie's, exist, but I do think they're a minority. And I mean that's probably another conversation, but the massive, I really hope that the massive increase in diagnosis is going to result in more, rather than just more diagnosis. I hope it's going to result in more subsidizing for kind of finding ways for people that have their one thing they can focus on to actually make money off it.
Absolutely. Support in the schooling system.
Totally.
It's just, I think for a lot of, I mean, for myself, I have always struggled with concentration, and have, my brother and he's kind of said to me, oh, you should look into maybe getting diagnosis. And I've spoken with one of our friends who's also a girl about it, because she's kind of felt she had the characteristics too. But I think it's quite interesting how different women and men materialize with those symptoms as well. And not necessarily symptoms, but characteristics, and how that kind of plays out in adulthood. And I don't know, like, I don't know if I want the diagnosis. I don't know if I need the diagnosis. I kind of know that I have my quirks.
I think it can only be useful. to know. I've gone through waves, I think primarily due to different ways of being with age. So when I was young, I was angry at the idea of being diagnosed. I'm just me. I'm just a hyper person. I like the things I like, which sounds like a cop out, I can't focus on things I don't like. It's like, no, I really, really can't focus on things I don't
Yeah.
like. And then I think you get to your teens and you go, okay, it's kind of cool that I got that diagnosis. I went to a special school. I got kicked out of my first school for
Wow.
being hyperactive. Went to a school that was, primarily for kids that were either kicked out from school or with learning difficulties of some description. So in my early teens, I was, glad I got the diagnosis, because now I was in a classroom with, I think I had like 9 kids in my class compared to
Wow.
45 in my first school. And
Mhm.
you got that focused, you got that attention, and I'm really fortunate. My grandma paid for me to go to that school, but most people aren't. And then I got older and I kind of stopped caring, and then suddenly this massive increase in diagnosis has become the forefront of a lot of stuff now.
Mhm.
You hear about it all the time, and I'd stopped caring or acknowledging or reading on the modern science, but now there is going to be a hell of a lot more science around it, loads
Mhm.
more research. So it's great, if you've felt a certain way and you then get a diagnosis and you can read up on tools to help with that. The tools to help with that are going to be different to tools that help people without it that struggle with focus.
Mhm. Mhm.
um the I always lose my keys kind of ADHD, and I'm not belittling that, but there's very mild ADHD.
Mhm.
um their coping tools are going to be very, 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 very different, and we're going to get some sort of scale at some point and start to, you know um yeah, I'm kind of rambling, but
No, no, no. That was, I think it was really important.
ADHD can, yeah, it can be, people are talking about it as, lots of people that are getting diagnosed later in life are talking about it as a
Mhm.
superpower. Most people my age will say it's definitely not a kin superpower. It's
Mhm.
hell on earth and it's debilitating.
Mhm.
So I think there's definitely different levels, and if you can turn it into a superpower more, you know, yeah, big up, big up.
Okay,
Yeah,
so thank you by the way for sharing a really
that's
kind
right.
of personal experience with ADHD, because there was stuff there
Yeah.
that I hadn't known about you. So thank you for sharing that with us. Um, so I guess we're reaching towards the end of the conversation today, and I usually finish up by thinking out about the people out there who are either stuck in some way. So I think relating to the work that you do, what advice would you give for anybody out there who is feeling really stuck, but they're really stuck in a health rut and they want to make a change, but they just don't know where to start? What would be your best advice for those people?
Uh, two things to kind of attack. I think have a conversation with someone, be that a friend that you deem to have. Can I swear? I don't know if I can
Of
swear.
course you can.
A friend that has their shit together. So be that a friend that has their shit together, or someone that is clued up. Myself, although I'm exercise primarily, I know about food, I know about sleep, because it all comes under the same umbrella. Either pay or don't pay, friend, professional, and have a conversation. Just talking about areas that you feel are issues out loud can be really beneficial. And I think getting the fundamentals in order, like the 6 most important that I will always say: sleep, food, water, exercise, stress, relationships. And relationships just doesn't just mean your partner, your relationships as a whole. If you can work on those and think of those as different, each being parts of the puzzle, and get those pillars in order, um, or just start making little changes to those pillars, um, your health will massively improve. If you're not exercising, go out for a 15-minute walk after each meal. Suddenly you're doing 45 minutes exercise every day. You're
Mhm.
doing, well, don't know the maths, but a few hours of movement every day, right, in a week. And it's just 15 minutes after you eat. The air, the sunlight are all going to do you wonders, right? If your sleep's struggling, I'm not going to tell you to have all electronics off by 6 p.m. Um, get sunlight in your eyes first thing in the day. We live in a world where that stuff's not possible. So just turn those screws a little bit,
Mm.
and life changes a lot for small shifts. But the reality is, food. I could say don't eat any processed food. That is the optimal way to live. But like I spoke about earlier, I'm trying to build a body that can deal with that stuff. And I will 80 to 90% of my diet will be whole foods, and I still enjoy eating some crap from time to time. So just dialing a little bit and starting to, think about the areas of those 6 pillars for me that are suffering and make very small changes. Nothing drastic. Same with exercise. Like I said, do the smallest amount of work that can make the biggest change.
Mm-hmm.
It's start from the bottom and work up. Don't start from the top and fall. So many people go, I need to lose weight and go to the gym 7 times a week, stop eating anything bad. And as soon as one of the wheels fall off, they sacrifice everything else. Like, and actually just make a change. 3 weeks later, make a new one. The 3 weeks to build a habit. Make one little change. 3 weeks later, make one more. It's incremental. It's subtle. It's small. The best
Mm.
results I have with clients are when I manage to convince them not that they don't need to do everything all at once. I won't have a conversation with a client about food until at least a month in, because they're already making this mad change of suddenly doing 3 workouts a week in a gym. There's no point in trying to do it all at once. Life's pretty long.
Mm.
Life's pretty
Yeah,
long.
yeah, exactly. And I think, honestly, even me listening to you there, and I hope audience you feel the same, but it almost feels like I can take a bit of a breather when I listen to you talking about health and fitness, because it's like it's not this, and I think I've mentioned this on a few episodes, it can get really quite heavy trying to be like toxic clean girl all the time. And in terms of you have to be perfect all the time, you can't have a drink with friends, and actually that becomes more detrimental to
Totally.
and we've had
There
this
was there
discussion
was a great
privately.
study on that. There was a great study on that. I can't remember who did it. I'll send it to you. Um, they did this case study. I think they took like 100. I think it was only 100 people, so it's not. Don't take this for red. But they studied biomarkers of a group of people that never went out and never drank, and a group of people that went out on a Friday and had like 3 drinks and socialized with all their friends, and all the
Mm,
biomarkers point towards going out and socializing and having a couple of drinks.
wow.
Socializing is incredibly important for our health, massively underrated. Again, I don't know beyond that I heard about and read the other day, which was great, and I don't
Mm,
know how true it is, but I believe that avoiding and we've had this conversation about
mhm,
kind of avoiding certain social situations because you don't want to drink or whatever it might be. There is definitely a health benefit from socializing, and that's what I talk about in the pillars. It's like relationships
mm,
they are super super important. And having relationships, having friends, if that means on a Friday night you go and have a few drinks, you eat kind of badly, and you don't train the next morning, so be it. It's one day a week. It's
mhm.
one day. I'm not saying go and get absolutely uni drunk, but go and enjoy nice food that's bad for you from time to time. Go and have a
Mhm.
drink, and there's ways of doing it. There's ways of doing it. But yeah. I think that's the reality is that what you were saying about you can kind of stop pushing yourself so much. There are
Mhm.
times to push yourself. I think
Yeah.
that's the thing to remember. And all these ideals that are built on social media of people telling us their morning routines or what they eat in a day or their crazy workout structures that aren't sustainable. And these people that get fiber lean for a photo shoot and make out like they look like that all year round, which they don't.
Mm, mm,
Um, and all of this it pulls you into a very skewed perception of what is normal.
mhm.
And I'm not going to try and sell myself as I could take my top off, oil up, and tell you this is how I live my life. But the reality is, I'll go and eat 2 pizzas in one sitting on a Friday night. Um, and 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 because 80-90% I have of the time I'm dialed in.
Mhm.
um, so those things aren't detrimental. And I think, yeah, as far as the exercise portion of all of that, it's do the smallest amount possible to make the biggest change.
Mhm.
And over time that amount is going to go up and up and up, of course. but don't start at the top and then fall off and be defeated by it. You know, if you can only go to the gym once a week and do 5 squats and then leave, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's something.
Do
It's a
that
start.
and build on it and build on it. Exactly. And the reality is you'll start feeling and seeing the benefits, and that is the thing that will get you hooked. The thing that gets you hooked is not any motivational video you watch on YouTube, is not someone else's routines. It's, oh, that felt good. Or, oh, I see I'm making better choices now. It's like when you're a kid, you make food choices based on flavor alone, right? You want to eat the thing that tastes nice. As you get older, suddenly, without realizing it, you're choosing foods for the taste and what they do for you. Because otherwise you just carry on eating What's-Its and Capri Sun for the rest of your life.
Wouldn't we all?
Like, but you start making choices differently, and I think that's,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of people say they don't have time to exercise. Like, that's a constant thing. It's like you do, but you're filling your time with other things, and that's fine if that's what you want to do. But you're not gonna improve your physical health by doing that. But the amount of people say, "Oh, I don't have time to work out," and it's that are always talking about the latest TV series. It's like, I think you might, but you value time sitting with your partner,
Yeah.
having dinner, watching telly. Cool. So that's not the thing we sacrifice. We sacrifice this, and I think it's find the barriers, break them down, and do a little bit and see how you get on. Because I guarantee you, as soon as you get the bug, you'll replace anything to find gym time. You just will.
Absolutely.
And so many people go too far the other way. Anyway, as I said, I can really keep talking forever, so just hang up at some point.
No. So I am going to put all your socials and website in the show notes of this anyway.
Cool.
But for anyone listening who, you know, I have listeners who are kind of dialed in from all over the world. If they did, you know, if they resonated with our conversation today, and they specifically want to work with you, can you work remotely with them? What does that
Absolutely.
look like?
I have I have 3 ways of working. One is in person, that I do less of now because I want to reach more people, quite simply.
Yeah.
And then I have 2 kind of tiers of online stuff. Again, all 3. So you can Zoom. I do Zoom stuff. I don't think it's worth it for most people. So I have 2 tiers of programming. One is I build you a program based on a conversation, and we catch up once a month and talk through everything. I'll watch some videos while on the phone to you if you've recorded them of yourself, and we'll talk through form. That's the kind of basic, and that was birthed through me desperately trying to find a cheaper way to deliver personalized programming. Because, you know, the time you put into something truly personal is a lot, and, you know, if you're going to make something like this into a business and actually be a half decent person, you can't charge 20 quid for a month programming that there are so many people doing. You think you're getting personalized programming for 20 quid? You're not. So that's the kind of entry level. And we have a conversation once a month, figure out what your next program is going to be, how we periodize, planning ahead for 12 weeks, for 24 weeks. And then the other is constant comms. So with this, you're getting your programming, but you are attaching videos to every single thing. So I send you a video how to do each movement, and it's in an app. You see all your workouts. We check in on movement patterns every session, every week. We have a call every week. I am feeding back to all your videos, checking in on form, progressively overloading. And it's, I mean, everything. We're talking about food, we're talking about sleeping habits, we're talking about supplementation should it need to happen. That's full personal training, but entirely remote. You go to the gym in your own time, film movements that I ask you to film, basically, and we check in like that. And it's been a really amazing thing. Lockdown forcing me to find a way to work remotely. I was so against it for so long, and now I'm in a position where I've got 10 times the clients doing great work. And not only is that great for me because I'm making more money, but these people are paying a fraction of the price than you would to see me 3 times a week in person, and they're getting just as good results. And I never thought it would be possible, but I've found a way to really dedicate to people and be as personal as I've always wanted to be and been with in-person clients, with people I've never met, you know. And it's great. It's great to be able to give that service to more people. And not only because there's so much nonsense around, but also because, you know, I want to have a family and make enough money to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I have to say
I
also, I want to say from a
PTing is the
personal,
worst way to make money. Sorry, being a PT is the
yeah.
worst way to make money. All PTs quit after 2 years. They all
Mm,
quit after 2 years. Like, seeing a PT that has 10 years experience is so rare.
yeah.
And I didn't really realize that till having conversations with other people, because I'm not in the Instagram cliques. I'm not in, you know, yeah, you quit because it's really, really difficult to make money. And then you kind of have to figure out your way of doing it. And the majority of people, that's low price, high customer. Whereas I've managed to build this kind of in between thing, which is great, because there's only so many hours in the day.
And that's what I was going to mention. Because when we first started training, you were in London and I was based in Suffolk, and I didn't quite know how it was going to work. I was like, you know, is it going to feel like actually having a PT? You know, is it going to be as good? But I have to kind of vouch for that experience because I found it really, really personal. The videos are actually weirdly at first felt really uncomfortable about shooting them, but then got quite into them and was
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, I
the
could.
the barriers with it are you still have to go into the gym for the first time by yourself. You
Yeah,
don't have a PT kind of holding your hand. That
yeah.
is something that's a barrier you have to be able to cross.
Mhm.
And my advice there is sign up to the dodgiest looking gym you can find, because typically the nicest people are the enormous strong men with a mohawk and are like 6 foot wide. Spit and sawdust gyms have nice people in them. They don't have Gymshark wearing posers in them. Um, and I really mean that. You go in as a 5'4" skinny little thing, and some monster is going to come up to you and help you. I promise,
Mm,
and not be
mhm.
pervy, and not be like all these things that quite rightly a lot of women fear about going into the gym. You know, guys have fears, but different kinds of fears typically. You go into like a proper spit and sawdust strongman bodybuilder gym, people want to help because they've been on the journey for so long,
Mhm.
um, and typically come from a place of feeling inadequate, hence wanting to put on 50 kilos of muscle.
Mhm.
And they're just, yeah, you're, you know, Virgin Active, David Lloyd, you get the kind of Instagram generation people there. In those gyms you don't, so that makes that step easy. And then the second step that's difficult with how I give training is filming yourself, and not caring that you might look like you're trying to be an influencer. um yeah, and once you've done it a couple of times, you become quite relaxed about it because no one really cares. People are
Yeah.
in the gym focusing on their workout for the most part.
Mhm.
um
I think that's
yeah,
also, yeah, a really important message is most people in the gym are just focused on doing their workout and going home. So if you
yeah,
are feeling a little bit vulnerable and a little bit outside of your comfort zone, just do it a couple of times and it might feel uncomfortable at first, but you will start to develop
get a
more
mate.
confidence. Yeah.
First couple of times, get a mate and go with a friend,
Mhm.
and you'll
Mhm.
see that they're not scary places full of awful people for the most part. And if on your first two experiences it does feel like that, find a new gym, because there are
Yeah.
some awful gyms that have really poisonous environments.
Mhm.
um but like I say, the dodgier beat up machines, kind of like a dog walking around kind of gyms, they're full of great people. They're full of people that do it because it makes them stronger, not
Yeah.
look better.
Yeah.
Mental strength, not appearance. And
Mhm.
you ask anyone that's been training for over 5-10 years why they train, none of them will say for appearance.
Mhm.
None. They will
Mhm.
all say because of how it makes them feel, focus, family life, relationships, sleep. They won't say because I want to look better. They've been doing it 10 years. Why do they keep going? They're already there, in the general population's eyes. They're their best self, physically speaking, because it
Mhm.
keeps you mentally sound. I mean, yeah, and getting older, you're not going to have poor bone density and messed up hormones, and yeah, exactly. Do lift weights, it's great.
um, well, what I'll do is I'll make sure to put all of the info in the show notes. So anyone who's listening, if you've resonated with this conversation and you want to reach out to Ivan, please do, because he is an absolutely amazing, incredible PT who genuinely
Bless you.
cares about you as a person and about you feeling your ultimate healthy and best self. So thank you so much, Ivan, for coming on the show today. It's been really insightful. Even as your friend, I've learned so much more about you as a person and about your profession specifically. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Bless you. And yeah, I will speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.